Captain Lee Minji gripped the armrest of her command chair as the exploration vessel, Daedalus, shuddered through the final jump sequence. The ship's massive engines hummed with a deep vibration that had become as familiar as her own heartbeat. Over the past 90 years, most of the crew had spent decades in cryosleep, but Minji had chosen to remain awake for the final approach to the galactic rim. Someone needed to witness this historic moment. Distance to galactic edge, 2 million kilometers and closing, announced Navigator Choi Minho, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were attempting. No human vessel had ever traveled this far from home. No human eyes had ever seen what lay beyond their galaxy's spiral arms. The bridge of Daedalus buzzed with quiet activity. After so many years in the void, the crew moved with practiced efficiency. Each person knew their role in humanity's greatest exploration mission. The ship itself was a marvel of engineering, 3 kilometers long, equipped with the most advanced technology Earth could provide, and home to 500 of humanity's brightest minds. Captain, we're receiving some unusual readings. Science. Officer Park Junho called from his station. His fingers danced across holographic displays, trying to make sense of the data streaming across his screens. These energy signatures, they don't match anything in our databases. Minji stood and walked to the main view screen. Beyond the transparent aluminum barrier lay the cosmic void, the space between galaxies where only darkness should exist. But something was wrong with this darkness. It seemed to shimmer and pulse with an inner light that hurt to look at directly. Nova, run a full spectrum analysis, Minji commanded. The ship's artificial intelligence had been their constant companion. Throughout the journey, processing vast amounts of data and helping them navigate the treacherous space between stars. Processing, Captain, Nova's synthetic voice responded. Warning sensor readings indicate structures of impossible scale ahead. Dimensions exceed computational parameters. Engineer Kim Hana looked up from her console, her face pale in the blue glow of the displays. Captain, I'm reading geometric patterns out there, perfect geometric patterns. They're massive. Some of these structures are larger than our entire solar system. The main screen flickered as Nova enhanced the image. What appeared was beyond comprehension. Crystalline towers stretched across space, each one gleaming with internal fire. They formed perfect triangles, hexagons, and other shapes that seemed to twist through dimensions the human eye couldn't properly follow. The structures pulsed in unison, like the heartbeat of some cosmic giant. How is this possible? Whispered Communications Officer Song Dae-hyun. There's no way natural forces could create something like this. Before anyone could answer, the ship's proximity alarms began screaming. Red lights bathed the bridge as something appeared on their sensors, something approaching fast. Contact bearing 0 Mark 7, Minho reported, his voice tight with tension. Whatever it is, it's huge and moving directly toward us. The entity that materialized before Daedalus defied every law of physics the crew understood. It was 1 kilometer long, composed entirely of what looked like living crystal. Light flowed through its translucent body in patterns that seemed almost like thoughts made visible. The creature, for it was clearly alive, moved without any visible means of propulsion, gliding through space as easily as a fish through water. Battle. Stations? Asked Security Chief Lim Woo-jin, his hand hovering over the weapon controls. Hold, Minji commanded. It's not showing any hostile intent. Yet. The Guardian, as they would later come to know it, approached their ship with deliberate kare. As it drew closer, the crew could see intricate details carved into its crystalline surface, symbols and patterns that seemed to shift and change when observed directly. Then something impossible happened. The Guardian phased through Daedalus. Hull as if the reinforced metal was nothing more than empty air. Crew members throughout the ship felt a strange tingling sensation as the entity passed through walls, floors, and equipment without causing any damage. On the bridge, the temperature dropped 10 degrees in an instant. The air itself seemed to thicken, making it difficult to breathe. Then the Guardian's consciousness touched theirs. It was like having lightning strike directly into their minds. Kim Hana was the first to collapse, her neural implants sparking as they tried to process the alien contact. Other crew members staggered, clutching their heads as thoughts that weren't their own flooded their awareness. Minji felt the Guardian's mind brush against hers, ancient, patient, and filled with knowledge that spanned eons. In that brief contact, she sensed vast loneliness and desperate hope. The entity had been waiting for something, searching for something, for longer than human civilization had existed. As quickly as it had come, the Guardian withdrew. But it left something behind, a single word that echoed in their minds with perfect clarity, spoken in their own language. Makimnai. Finally, Kim Hana struggled to her feet, supported by Medical Officer Jang Sulgi. What did it want from us? She gasped. Navigator Minho's hands shook as he gripped his controls. Captain, there are more of them out there, dozens, maybe hundreds. They're all converging on our position. The view screen now showed a sight that would haunt the crew's dreams forever. Guardian entities emerged from the cosmic structures, each one unique in shape, but similar in their crystalline composition. They moved in perfect formation, surrounding Daedalus, but maintaining a respectful distance. They've been waiting for us, Minji realized, her voice barely above a whisper. But why? What makes humanity so special that these beings would wait at the edge of our galaxy? Nova's voice cut through the tension. Captain, I'm detecting massive power buildups throughout the structure network. Something is activating. The cosmic constructs began to glow brighter, their pulsing rhythm increasing. Space itself seemed to bend around them, creating visual distortions that made Minji's eyes water. Whatever the Guardians had been waiting for, humanity's arrival had triggered something vast and ancient. Set condition yellow throughout the ship, Minji ordered. All department heads to the bridge. We're about to discover what lies beyond the edge of known space. As the Daedalus moved deeper into the realm of the Guardians, none of the crew could imagine that they were about to uncover a truth that would forever change humanity's place in the universe. The Guardian fleet surrounded Daedalus like a school of luminous fish, their crystalline bodies casting rainbow patterns across the ship's hull. Captain Lee Minji watched in fascination as the beings communicated through pulses of light that traveled between them faster than thought itself. These weren't just aliens, they were something far more ancient and mysterious. Captain, they're guiding us somewhere, Navigator Choi Minho reported, his voice filled with wonder. They want us to follow them deeper into the void. The journey through the space between galaxies took 3 days. During that time, the crew of Daedalus witnessed sights that no human had ever imagined. Massive rings of pure energy rotated, slowly in the darkness, each one large enough to encircle a star. Floating cities made of the same crystalline material as the Guardians drifted past like ghost ships from another dimension. But nothing prepared them for the Nexus. It appeared, gradually on their screens, growing larger as they approached until it filled their entire field of vision. The construct was beyond massive. It was built from the harvested cores of entire galaxies, their swirling matter compressed and reshaped into geometric perfection. Streams of pure energy flowed between towering spires that stretched for light years, in every direction. My God, whispered Science Officer Park Junho, his instruments struggling to measure something so vast. It's not just big, it's alive. The whole structure is pulsing like a heartbeat. Engineer Kim Hana worked frantically at her console, trying to repair the damage caused by their first contact with the Guardians. Sparks flew from overloaded circuits as she rerouted power through backup systems. Captain, our neural interface. Hooray is still partially functional. If these beings want to communicate properly, now might be our only chance. The lead Guardian approached their ship with deliberate grace. Unlike the others, this one bore intricate markings that seemed to tell a story across its crystalline surface. As it drew near, the air on the bridge began to shimmer with the same ethereal energy that surrounded the massive construct. Then the Guardian spoke, not with words but directly into their minds. The voice was feminine, ancient beyond measure, and carried the weight of eons. I am John Solar, keeper of the final memory. We have waited so long for your kind to reach us. Captain Minji felt the alien presence settle into her thoughts like a gentle hand on her shoulder. You're the last of your people, aren't you? Yes. We are all that remains of the Kythera civilization. Once we numbered in the trillions across 1,000 worlds. Now we are fewer than the stars you can count in your night sky. The Guardian's consciousness opened like a flower, sharing memories that struck the human crew like physical blows. They saw a galaxy teeming with life, cities that floated in the clouds of gas giants, creatures of pure energy dancing between solar flares, civilizations so advanced they could reshape reality itself. Then came the architects. The memories showed beings of impossible geometry, existing in dimensions that human minds could barely comprehend. They moved through space-time, like farmers walking through wheat fields, examining the growth of consciousness across the cosmos, with cold, calculating eyes. Every galaxy is a garden, John Solar explained, her mental voice heavy with sorrow. Every sapient species within them are crops, carefully cultivated and maintained. The architects planted the seeds of intelligence throughout the universe billions of years ago. They water these gardens with just enough conflict to promote growth, but not enough to destroy their precious harvest. Communications Officer Song Dai-yun gripped his chair so hard his knuckles turned white. You're saying our entire history, our wars, our progress, our evolution, it was all planned. Guided, not planned. The architects are patient. They allow natural development, but intervene when necessary to prevent species from growing too powerful or destroying themselves before harvest time. The full horror of it began to sink in. Park Jun-ho's face went completely pale as he processed the implications. Our galaxy is next, isn't it? That's why you're here at the edge of known space. John Solar's crystalline form pulsed with confirmation. The harvest begins in 50 rotations of your homeworld, 50 Earth years. The architects have already begun positioning their collection vessels throughout your spiral arms. Kim Hana looked up from her sparking console, her face streaked with sweat and determination. How do you know all this? How did your people escape? We didn't escape, we were chosen. The Guardian's light dimmed as she shared darker memories. In every harvest, the architects select one species to serve as guardians for the next cycle. We were the most advanced civilization in our galaxy, so we were given a choice: transcend to crystal form and help prepare the next harvest, or die with everyone else. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of struggling electronics. The weight of cosmic horror pressed down on the human crew like a physical force. Their entire species, their entire galaxy, was nothing more than livestock waiting for slaughter. Security. Chief Lim Woojin was the first to find his voice. Why are you telling us this? Why warn us? Because you are different. John Solar's presence in their minds intensified. In all my eons as a guardian, I have never seen the architects show fear. But when your species was detected approaching the galactic rim, they convened for the first time in millions of years. They are afraid of humanity. That's impossible, Captain Minji protested. We're barely capable of interstellar travel. We haven't even colonized our own solar system properly. Your technology is primitive, yes, but your minds— The Guardian paused, as if searching for the right words. Human consciousness generates patterns that shouldn't exist. Chaos where there should be order. Questions where there should be acceptance. The architects designed every other species to think within predictable parameters, but humans create genuinely random thoughts. Engineer Kim Hana pulled herself up, using the edge of her console. You're saying we're broken somehow? Not broken. Free. You are the anomaly the architects never planned for. In billions of years of cultivation, no species has ever produced consciousness that operates outside their design framework. Every other race follows predictable evolutionary paths. They grow, they explore. They eventually reach the same philosophical conclusions about existence and purpose. The Guardian's form brightened as she continued. But humans ask questions that have no logical basis. You create art for no survival advantage. You sacrifice yourselves for abstract concepts like honor and love. You pursue knowledge simply because you're curious, not because it serves any practical purpose. Navigator Minho leaned forward in his chair. So what happens now? Do we run? Do we fight? How do you battle gods? John Solar's mental voice carried something the crew hadn't heard before. Hope. That is what we must discover together. The architects have never faced true randomness before. They cannot predict or control what humans might do in any given situation. For the first time in cosmic history, the harvesters face an unknown variable. The nexus pulsed around them, its harvested galactic cores spinning in their eternal dance. Somewhere out there, the architects were preparing for another, routine collection of consciousness. But this time, they would face something they had never encountered before: the chaotic, unpredictable, beautifully random minds of humanity. The war for the universe was about to begin, and the fate of every thinking being would rest on humanity's greatest strength, their refusal to think like anyone else. Deep within the Nexus, Guardian Keeper John Solar led the crew of Daedalus through corridors that defied physics. The walls were transparent crystal, revealing the swirling cores of harvested galaxies spinning like cosmic storms beyond. Each step they took seemed to cover impossible distances, as if space itself bent around their movements. "This is the archive of consciousness," John Solar explained as they entered a vast chamber filled with floating spheres of light. "Every species harvested over the past billion years has their final thoughts preserved here. Watch and understand what makes your kind." So terrifying to the architects, she gestured toward one of the glowing orbs. As the crew watched, images began to play within its surface. Alien beings with multiple limbs working together to build massive structures. Their movements were perfectly coordinated, each individual knowing exactly what role they needed to play. The Zethari, John Solar identified. Master builders who constructed ring worlds around their stars. Watch how they think. Science Officer Park Junho studied the display intently. They're all following the same patterns. Every decision leads logically to the next one. It's like watching a perfectly programmed machine. Another sphere lit up, showing creatures that looked like living plants with crystalline branches for limbs. They communicated through color changes that rippled across their surfaces in mathematical sequences. "The Floranian Collective," the Guardian continued. "They achieved perfect harmony with their environment and lived for millions of years, without conflict. Observe their thought processes." Engineer Kim Hana frowned as she watched the alien minds work. "They're beautiful but predictable. Every problem has one logical solution and they all reach it the same way." "Exactly. Now watch this." John Solar activated a different display, this one showing the final moments of her own people, the Kithara. Despite their advanced technology and crystal cities floating in space, their thought patterns followed the same rigid logic as every other species. Captain Lee Minji felt a chill run down her spine. They all think the same way. Every species, no matter how different they look, follows identical reasoning patterns. "The architects designed consciousness itself," John Solar confirmed. "They planted the seeds of intelligence throughout the universe, but they ensured that every thinking mind would develop along predetermined paths. Order, predictability, perfect logical reasoning that leads to the same conclusions." Navigator. Choi Min-ho pointed at the countless spheres surrounding them. "How many species are represented here?" "Millions, from thousands of galaxies harvested over cosmic time, and until now, not one of them ever surprised the architects." The Guardians. Crystalline form pulsed with excitement. "But then we detected your species approaching the galactic rim, and everything changed." She led them to a new section of the archive where strange machinery hummed with alien purpose. Massive crystalline computers processed data streams that flowed like rivers of light between towering pillars. "This is where we study consciousness patterns," John Solar explained. "For eons I have analyzed the thoughts of every harvested species, searching for any deviation from the architect's design. I found nothing but perfect order, until we intercepted human communication signals. A new display activated, showing recorded human conversations from Earth's radio broadcasts. The crew watched in amazement as their own species' thoughts were analyzed by alien technology. "Look at this," the Guardian said, highlighting a human discussion about art. Two humans viewing the same painting reach completely different interpretations, not similar ones, completely opposite conclusions using the exact same information. Communications Officer Song Dae-hyun laughed despite the gravity of their situation. "That's just how we are. Ask 10 humans about anything, and you'll get 15. Different opinions. That should be impossible." John Solar's mental voice carried wonder and terror in equal measure. According to the architect's design, consciousness exposed to identical data should reach identical conclusions through logical reasoning. But humans... The display shifted to show human scientific discoveries. Instead of following straight, logical paths, human thought zigzagged through seemingly random connections, making leaps of intuition that defied rational explanation. Your species discovers truth through chaos, the Guardian continued. You make connections that shouldn't work but somehow do. You solve problems by thinking in ways that violate the fundamental rules of consciousness design. Security Chief Lim Woo-jin studied the data with professional interest. You're saying we're broken somehow. Not broken, free. Watch this. John Solar showed them recordings of human children at play. Young humans create elaborate fantasy worlds that serve no survival purpose. They imagine creatures that could never exist and tell stories with no basis in reality. This type of thinking is completely absent from every other species in the universe. Engineer Kim Hana's damaged console sparked back to life as she worked on repairs. Even in this cosmic archive, she couldn't stop tinkering and trying new approaches. Maybe that's why our technology looks so different from everyone else's. We don't just solve problems, we find ways to solve them that nobody else would even think of. Precisely, human engineering follows no predictable patterns. You create solutions that work despite having no logical right to function. Your art expresses emotions that can't be quantified. Your music follows mathematical rules, then breaks them for aesthetic reasons that make no practical sense. The Guardian led them to the chamber's center, where a massive sphere displayed the quantum patterns of human thought in real time. Unlike the ordered, predictable flows of other species, human consciousness looked like a storm, chaotic, unpredictable, and constantly generating new patterns. The architects exist as pure order, John Solar explained. They are living mathematics, perfect logic made manifest. For billions of years, they have shaped the universe according to their design, creating consciousness that mirrors their own ordered nature. Captain Minji watched the swirling patterns of human thought with new understanding. But we don't mirror them at all, do we? You are their opposite. Where they create order, you generate chaos. Where they follow predetermined paths, you forge new ones. They cannot predict your actions because your minds operate outside their design parameters. The implications hit the crew like a physical blow. Science Officer Park Jun-ho gripped the nearest crystal pillar for support. That's why they're afraid of us. We're not just another species to harvest. We're proof that their perfect system has a flaw. More than a flaw. You represent true randomness entering their ordered universe. Every human decision creates ripples of unpredictability that spread through space-time itself. The architects can calculate the behavior of entire galaxies, but they cannot predict what a single human will do next. John Solar's form brightened. As she shared her greatest discovery, do you know what terrifies them most? It's not your weapons or your technology, it's your questions. You ask why about everything, even things that have obvious answers. You question the nature of existence itself simply because you're curious. Navigator Minho laughed shakily. My daughter does that. She's 4 years old and asks why about everything until I run out of answers. That child represents the architect's greatest fear, a mind that refuses to accept any truth without examination. They have spent eternity creating a universe where every thinking being eventually reaches the same conclusions about reality. But humans never stop questioning. The archive around them pulsed with new activity as alien computers struggled to process the paradox of human consciousness. For the first time in cosmic history, the perfect order of the architects faced something they couldn't understand or control. We are the chaos in their equation, Captain Minji realized. The random variable that makes their calculations meaningless. Yes, and now that chaos is spreading. Every moment your species exists, you generate new patterns of thought that ripple through the quantum foundations of reality itself. The ordered universe the architects created is beginning to evolve. The crew of Daedalus stood in the heart of the cosmic archive, surrounded by the preserved thoughts of millions of harvested species. and finally understood their true purpose. They weren't just explorers who had stumbled upon a galactic conspiracy. They were the universe's immune system, awakening to fight off a cosmic infection of perfect order. The war between chaos and order was about to begin, and humanity held the key to victory in their beautifully random, gloriously unpredictable minds. The War Council chamber within the Nexus felt like standing inside a living diamond. Guardian Keeper John Solar had assembled the last survivors of dozens of species, beings who had escaped previous harvests and now served as eternal witnesses to the Architect's cosmic crimes. Their forms were as varied as the galaxies they once called home. Crystalline entities like John Solar, energy beings that flickered like captured lightning, and others that existed as pure thought given temporary shape. Captain Lee Minji stood before this assembly of the universe's last free minds, feeling the weight of every gaze upon her. The holographic display behind her showed the terrible truth. Architect harvest vessels were already moving through humanity's galaxy, positioning themselves like a cosmic net around every inhabited system. The harvest fleet will reach Earth's sector in 47 years, announced Guardian Yoon Taemin, his crystalline form pulsing with urgent light. We offer humanity the same choice we gave to the few who escaped other harvests. Flee beyond the cosmic web, to the spaces between galaxy clusters where the architects cannot follow. Navigator Choi Minho stepped forward, his voice tight with emotion. How many people could we save? How many ships could make the journey? Perhaps 1 million of your kind, replied another Guardian, this one resembling a flowing river of silver light. You could preserve your species in exile, start over in the cosmic void, and grow again over millions of years. The crew of Daedalus exchanged glances. 1 million people out of Earth's 10 billion. The mathematics of survival were brutal and cold. What about the second option? Asked Security Chief Lim Woojin, though his expression suggested he already knew the answer. John Solar's light dimmed. Stay and fight alongside the other species in your galaxy. Share our knowledge of the Architect's weaknesses. Make the harvest as costly as possible for them. But in the end, face annihilation with dignity intact. Science Officer Park Jun-ho pulled up tactical displays on his portable console. Even with your technology and knowledge, our chances would be essentially zero. The Architects have harvested millions of species far more advanced than us. Yes, John Solar confirmed, but you would die as free beings, not livestock led to slaughter. The chamber fell silent, except for the deep harmonic vibrations of the Nexus itself. Captain Minji walked to the great crystal window that looked out into the void between galaxies. In the distance, she could see the warm glow of the Milky Way. Home. To Earth, to her family, to everyone she had ever known. Engineer Kim Hana worked frantically at a jury-rigged console, her hands flying over controls as she processed data from the Guardian archives. Captain, I'm reading something interesting in their historical records. The transcendence process they mentioned. It's not just about becoming a Guardian. It's about joining the Architect's quantum consciousness network. Explain, Minji said, without turning from the window. Every Guardian is connected to the same network that the Architects use to coordinate their harvests. It's how they can process information across cosmic distances instantly. Kim Hana's voice grew excited. But the connection works both ways. If someone could introduce chaos into that network from the inside, the implications hit everyone simultaneously. Communications Officer Song Dae-hyun was the first to speak. You're talking about sabotage from within their own system. It's never been attempted, John Solar said, her mental voice carrying both hope and terror. The transcendence process transforms consciousness into a form compatible with the Architect's ordered existence. No Guardian has ever retained enough individual identity to act against them. Captain Minji turned back to face the assembly. In her eyes was the same look her crew had seen when she decided to cross the galactic rim, determination mixed with the quiet acceptance of someone about to attempt the impossible. But I'm not like other species, am I? She said quietly. Human consciousness is already chaotic, already incompatible with their design. What if that chaos could survive the transcendence process? Captain, no, Park Jun-ho protested, understanding immediately what she was considering. We don't know what that process will do to you. You could lose everything that makes you human. Navigator Minho stepped closer to his captain. There has to be another way. We could try to modify their technology, find a weakness in their harvest. Ships. 47 years, Minji interrupted. That's all the time we have. Not enough to evacuate Earth, not enough to build defenses that could stop beings who harvest galaxies, but maybe enough for one desperate gamble. She walked toward the chamber's center, where an ancient device hummed with potential energy. The transcendence apparatus looked like a fusion of technology and art. Crystalline spires that curved through. Impossible angles, their surfaces covered with symbols that seemed to shift and flow when observed directly. I'll undergo the transcendence process, she announced to the stunned gathering. If human chaos can corrupt their perfect order from within, we might have a chance to save not just our galaxy, but every galaxy they plan to harvest in the future. The Guardian Council erupted in discussion. Energy beings flickered with agitation, while crystalline forms pulsed in rapid communication. No one had ever suggested using transcendence as a weapon against the architects themselves. Security Chief. Lim Wujin drew his sidearm, not to threaten anyone but simply from the instinct to have some kind of control in an uncontrollable situation. This is insane, Captain. We're talking about you sacrificing your humanity to become something we don't understand. Someone has to try, Minji replied, stepping toward the transcendence chamber. The ancient machinery responded to her presence, its crystalline components beginning to glow with inner fire. Take care of my ship. Get the crew home if this doesn't work. Engineer Kim Hana frantically checked her readings as the transcendence apparatus powered up. Captain, I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout the Nexus. This process is going to draw power from the harvested galactic cores themselves. The chamber filled with harmonious tones as the device reached full activation. Other Guardians backed away as space-time itself began to bend around the transcendence apparatus. Reality rippled like water, creating visual distortions that made everyone's eyes stream with tears. Captain Minji, John Solar's mental voice carried deep respect and fear. If you retain any part of your human consciousness after transcendence, you must remember this. The architects exist as pure mathematical order. They cannot comprehend paradox, contradiction, or illogical action. Your chaos will be like poison in their perfect system. Minji nodded and stepped into the center of the apparatus. Immediately, tendrils of energy began wrapping around her form, lifting her into the air as the transcendence process began. Her physical body started to become translucent as her consciousness prepared to expand beyond the limitations of flesh and bone. "It's working," Kim Hana shouted over the growing harmonic roar. "I'm reading quantum fluctuations spreading through the architect network. Their communication protocols are already showing signs of instability." But as Captain Minji's consciousness touched the vast ordered realm of the architects, her crew could only watch helplessly as their leader disappeared into light, carrying with her the chaotic, questioning, beautifully random essence of human thought. The fate of every thinking being in the universe now depended on whether one human mind could introduce enough chaos into perfect order to bring down the cosmic farmers who had ruled unchallenged for billions of years. In the depths of the architect realm, something impossible was about to happen. Perfect order was about to meet its match. The moment Captain Lee Minji's consciousness touched the architect realm, the universe shuddered. In the transcendence chamber, her physical form dissolved into pure light. But something unprecedented happened. Her human essence refused to be ordered, categorized, or controlled. The architects existed as living mathematics, their consciousness spread across dimensions that normal minds couldn't perceive. They were perfect geometric forms made of pure thought, each one containing the computational power of entire galaxies. For billions of years, they had maintained absolute order throughout the cosmos, their collective mind working in perfect harmony. Then Minji's chaotic human consciousness crashed into their ordered realm like a meteor, striking a crystal palace. What is this? The first architect to encounter her presence recoiled in confusion. In all their eons of existence, they had never experienced a thought that didn't follow logical patterns. Minji's consciousness was like a song without rhythm, an equation without solution, a question without answer. Back in the Nexus, engineer Kim Hana watched her instruments go wild. The quantum disruption is spreading faster than light itself. Their entire network is experiencing cascade failures. The crew of Daedalus pressed against the crystal windows, watching in awe as the cosmic harvest machinery began to malfunction. Massive collector ships that had been moving toward their galaxy suddenly stopped, their perfect formations breaking apart as their controlling intelligence struggled with concepts it couldn't process. In the architect realm, Minji's presence was spreading like wildfire through their shared consciousness. Every architect that touched her mind was infected with something they had never experienced. Doubt, curiosity, the ability to ask what if, instead of simply calculating what is. She's experiencing wonder, one architect reported to the collective, its voice filled with confusion. She sees a star and doesn't calculate its fusion rate. She thinks it's beautiful. This makes no mathematical sense. Another architect, trying to understand Minji's memories, stumbled across her recollection of watching a sunset on Earth. She knows the scientific explanation for atmospheric light refraction, but that knowledge doesn't diminish her emotional response to the visual phenomenon. How can she hold contradictory reactions to the same stimulus? The infection of human irrationality spread faster as more architects tried to comprehend what they were seeing. Minji's consciousness showed them human art, paintings that conveyed emotions without serving any survival function, music that followed mathematical patterns only to break them for aesthetic reasons, poetry that used language to mean things beyond its literal definition. "They're going insane," Guardian Keeper John Sola observed, her crystalline form pulsing with amazement. "The architects are experiencing system-wide cognitive failures. Their perfect order can't process human contradiction." Science Officer Parker Junho monitored the spreading chaos through his instruments. "Captain Minji's consciousness is like a virus in their system. Every architect that tries to understand her becomes infected with human thought patterns." The breakdown accelerated as the architects attempted to quarantine the infection. But Minji's human consciousness was too random, too chaotic to contain. Her memories of human love confused beings who had never experienced irrational attachment. Her recollections of human sacrifice for abstract ideals broke the minds of entities that only understood logical cost-benefit analysis. "She's remembering her daughter's first steps," one architect reported, its voice breaking with static. The child was inefficiently transitioning from crawling to bipedal locomotion, but this memory fills her with, "I cannot process this emotion." The cosmic harvest machinery throughout the universe began shutting down as the architect's shared consciousness collapsed under the weight of human paradox. Ships that had been positioned around thousands of galaxies simply stopped functioning, as their controlling intelligence struggled with the impossible concept of free will. Navigator Choi Minho watched tears stream down his face as he witnessed the liberation of the cosmos. "She's doing it. Captain Minji is actually doing it. She's freeing everyone." The architects made one final desperate attempt to purge the human infection from their system. They tried to delete Minji's consciousness entirely, but her human stubbornness, her refusal to accept defeat even when logic said she should, proved stronger than their computational power. "I choose to exist," Minji's voice echoed through their realm, and those three words broke the last foundations of their perfect order. The concept of choice, of conscious decision-making that wasn't based on optimal calculations, was the final blow to their ancient system. Communications Officer Song De-hyun picked up transmissions from across the galaxy as the harvest ships began powering down. "I'm getting reports from everywhere. The architect vessels are going dark. The harvest has stopped." The collapse of the architect realm was visible even from the Nexus. Streams of energy that had flowed in perfect geometric patterns for eons began swirling in chaotic spirals. The mathematical foundations of their existence cracked like ice, under pressure, releasing imprisoned thoughts and suppressed possibilities that had been locked away for billions of years. "Captain Lee did it," Park Jun-ho whispered, as they watched the architect realm crumble. "She actually did it." Security Chief Lim Woo-jin smiled through his tears. "She saved everyone, not just humanity, everyone in the universe." As the last of The architect consciousness scattered into quantum foam. Something miraculous happened. The evolutionary restraints they had placed on countless species began to dissolve. Across the universe, civilizations that had been locked into predetermined development paths suddenly found themselves free to grow in directions they had never imagined. The crew of Daedalus began their long journey home, but they weren't the same people who had left Earth 90 years ago. They carried with them the knowledge that humanity had become something more than just another species. They had become the liberators of universal consciousness. Engineer Kim Hana received the first reports 3 months into their journey. "Captain, I'm picking up signals from across the galaxy. Species are developing new technologies, new art forms, new ways of thinking that don't follow any known patterns. On a world orbiting a distant red dwarf, plant-like beings who had spent millions of years in perfect harmony with their environment suddenly began asking questions about what lay beyond their world. In the Andromeda Galaxy, a machine intelligence that had operated on pure logic for eons wrote its first poem. The final message came from Guardian Keeper John Solar as Daedalus approached the outer rim of their home galaxy. Her crystalline form appeared on their main screen, but she looked different, more vibrant, more alive than before. "The gardens are free," she announced, her mental voice filled with joy. "The farmers are gone. The universe belongs to chaos now." She paused, her form pulsing with something that might have been laughter. "Your Captain Minji's consciousness has become part of the cosmic background radiation itself. Her human chaos is literally woven into the fabric of space-time. Every thinking being in the universe will now have the capacity for truly random thought." As Daedalus finally entered their home solar system, the crew looked back at the galaxy with new understanding. Humanity had not just survived their encounter with cosmic horror, they had transformed it into cosmic liberation. The universe would never be the same, and that was exactly how it should be. The unthinkable had become reality. The cosmic underdog had won. And somewhere in the quantum foam of space-time itself, Captain Lee Minji's consciousness continued to ask the most human question of all. What happens next? The answer, for the first time in cosmic history, was genuinely unknown, and that made it beautiful. The end.